She was everything I thought I ever wanted. Smart, beautiful, and funny. But I didn't realize until it was too late that I was slowly losing myself in a web of manipulation, gaslighting, and control, all wrapped in a perfect smile. I met Olivia at a friend's rooftop party in downtown Austin. She was standing near the railing, wearing a faded denim jacket and sipping some terrible white wine out of a solo cup. I remember her laugh. Kind of loud, kind of sharp. She made a joke about how everyone at the party looked like they were trying to get cast in a Netflix series, and I laughed a little too hard. I think I liked how confident she seemed. I hadn't dated in a while. My last relationship ended quietly, no drama, just two people drifting apart. So when Olivia started texting me later that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a while. Excitement, curiosity, a little danger, maybe. Our first few dates were intense. She talked a lot, fast, sharp, like her brain was always 5 steps ahead. And she always had something clever or cutting to say. First, I found it refreshing. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She wasn't afraid to call someone out or speak her mind, even if it made people uncomfortable. I mistook that for honesty. She'd tell me stories about her exes, how they were weak or manipulative or obsessed with her. The way she told it, she was always the one being wronged, always the one who had to escape. I remember thinking, man, she's been through a lot. I wanted to be the one who didn't let her down, the one who understood her. Looking back, that was my first mistake. She didn't like when I went out with friends without her. She'd act cool about it at first, say stuff like, "Go, have fun." But when I'd come back, her mood would shift. She'd go quiet, then pick a fight over something random. One night, I stayed out for an hour longer than I said I would, and she didn't speak to me for 2 days. When I asked what was wrong, she said, "I just think it's weird that you need other people to have fun." At the time, I chalked it up to insecurity. I thought, she's just been hurt before. I didn't realize she was laying the groundwork, testing how far she could push, how much I'd tolerate. But that was just the beginning. About a month into our relationship, Olivia and I were walking around Lady Bird Lake. It was one of those early spring days in Austin, warm, but not humid yet. The sky was doing that perfect watercolor thing, and I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. Until it wasn't. We stopped at a taco truck near the trail, and while we waited for our food, I bumped into my coworker Amy. She was walking her dog, just casually, and I introduced her to Olivia. The whole interaction lasted maybe 2 minutes. Amy said, "Nice to meet you." Olivia smiled, too wide, and said, "You too." But her eyes weren't smiling, not even close. After Amy walked away, I turned to Olivia and said, "She's cool. We worked together on a few projects." Silence. I laughed awkwardly. "What?" Olivia tilted her head and asked, "Did you two ever have a thing?" I blinked. "What? No, not even close." She shrugged. "It's just, you seemed pretty happy to see her. Like, really happy." The tacos were ready, and as I grabbed them, I tried to lighten the mood. "Liv, seriously. You've got nothing to worry about. She's just a coworker." But she wasn't buying it. That night, she barely touched her food. She scrolled through her phone with exaggerated disinterest while I talked. I asked her if something was wrong. She said no. I asked again. She rolled her eyes. Finally, she said, "I just hate feeling like I'm competing with someone. I've been cheated on before, It's a trigger." There it was, the word, trigger. Like an emotional landmine I had stepped on unknowingly. And suddenly I was the bad guy. Because I didn't reassure her hard enough. Because I had been too friendly. Because I should have known better. And the worst part? I apologized. I actually said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel like that." Her face softened immediately. She smiled and climbed into my lap like nothing had happened. "I just need to feel safe with you," she whispered. And I told myself I was being kind. That I was being emotionally mature. That validating her feelings didn't cost me anything. But something inside me shifted that night. A tiny crack formed in my sense of self. The kind of crack you ignore until it spreads wide enough to swallow entire parts of you. And I didn't even realize it yet. It didn't happen all at once. Olivia didn't come out and say, "Don't wear that shirt," or "Stop hanging out with them." No, that would have been too obvious. Too easy to push back on. Instead, she was subtle, almost surgical, with how she tightened her grip. It started with a jacket. I had this old leather jacket. It was cracked and worn at the sleeves, but I loved it. Had it since college. It made me feel like myself. We were getting ready to go out one night. Just dinner and a local band at this bar she liked. I came out of the bedroom wearing that jacket, and she gave me a once-over, then raised an eyebrow. "You're wearing that?" I looked down. "Yeah." "Why?" She gave this tiny smirk. The kind you can't call out because it's too small, too fleeting. "It's just kind of loud, isn't it?" I thought we were going for something more chill tonight. I hesitated. "It's just a jacket." "Totally," she said, already turning away. "Just thought you'd want to look more, I don't know, mature." And just like that, the jacket went back in the closet. Next came my friends. She didn't say, "Don't see them." She just asked me how I felt after spending time with them. "Do you ever notice how Brad always interrupts you? Like, you let him talk over you all the time." Or, "Maya's kind of cold, isn't she?" She didn't even ask how your week was. She'd plant these little seeds. Doubt. Insecurity. I'd start watching my friends more closely, wondering if she was right. Slowly, I stopped texting them back as fast. Then I stopped reaching out at all. I remember one afternoon I told her I was grabbing lunch with Jordan, my best friend since high school, and she went quiet. "You okay with that?" I asked. She nodded. "Of course. I just didn't think you'd want to spend time with someone who thinks cheating is funny." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "That story he told? About hooking up with his coworker while still dating that girl?" You laughed. "It was a dumb story." I wasn't laughing at the cheating part. "I'm not mad," she said quickly. "I just didn't know you felt that way about stuff like that." And just like that, I canceled the lunch. Then it was my tone. My volume. My laugh. "You don't have to be so loud, babe. You kind of sound cocky when you talk like that. I just don't want people to think you're showing off." I became hyper-aware of everything I did. My voice shrank. My style got muted. I second-guessed every sentence before I said it. And she never raised her voice. Never laid down rules. She just suggested, nudged, softly disapproved, and smiled when I adjusted accordingly. Looking back now, I realized she didn't want me as I was. She wanted a version of me that wouldn't threaten her insecurities. Someone easier to manage. Someone smaller. And I was letting her mold me into exactly that. It was a Saturday night and Olivia had invited me to a dinner with her coworkers, mostly creatives from her agency. Stylish, sarcastic, intimidating people. The kind who wore blazers without shirts and knew obscure French cinema. I was nervous, I won't lie. I'm a pretty chill guy. Jeans, a plain tee, nothing flashy. I tried to dress up. I wore a button-up and styled my hair. I even Googled some of her coworkers so I wouldn't be caught off guard in conversation. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted her to be proud of me. We got to the rooftop restaurant, and within 5 minutes, I was out of my depth. The conversation flew fast, inside jokes, industry lingo, ironic references to things I didn't recognize. I was quiet, just listening. I thought that was better than trying too hard. And then, out of nowhere, Olivia said loudly, "Oh my God, you guys. Tell them about the time you thought Vermont was in Canada." My stomach dropped. I smiled weakly. "That was years ago." "Still," she grinned, eyes sparkling. "He literally Googled, 'Is Vermont foreign?'" I almost cried laughing. Her friends chuckled. One guy raised his glass and said, "A true scholar." I laughed too, but something about it felt wrong. She didn't stop there. "Honestly, I think it's cute. Like he's just this golden retriever of a man. Kind of clueless, but in a lovable way." They really laughed at that. Harder. Someone even said, "Ah, good boy," and whistled. I sat there smiling, burning. And when we got home, I finally said something. "Why'd you say all that? You made me look like an idiot." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" "You called me clueless." in front of everyone. She looked hurt. Babe, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing. You're being way too sensitive. I don't think it's funny. Well, maybe that's the problem. You don't know how to take a joke. And that's how it always went. She'd cross a line, laugh about it, and if I objected, I was the one ruining the mood. I was the one being dramatic, insecure, boring. Her version of playful always seemed to come at my expense. I started wondering if she actually respected me, or if I was just her emotional punching bag with a smiley face. And what hurt the most? I didn't walk out that night. I just stood there, holding my keys in my hand, not knowing what to do. A couple weeks after that dinner, Olivia convinced me to go to one of her friends' parties. A housewarming in this massive loft that looked like it came straight from a Netflix series. Neon lights, indie music, trays of overpriced appetizers, and an open bar with custom cocktails named after inside jokes I didn't get. I was already on edge before we even got there. I felt like I never fully fit into her world, and she never really made an effort to bring me in. We were mingling mostly with people she knew. She kept introducing me as her sweet boy, and I kept pretending that didn't sound condescending. Then, somewhere near the kitchen, this guy walked up, tall, perfectly groomed, tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves, and a voice that sounded like it was trained to host podcasts. Olivia lit up like I'd never seen before. "Oh my God, Tyler, you made it." They hugged, longer than normal. She laughed at everything he said, touched his arm, threw her head back when he made a joke that wasn't even funny. I just stood there like furniture. After a while, she barely even acknowledged me. I became background noise. At one point, Tyler poured her a drink and handed it to her with this smirk, and she said, "You always take care of me." In this voice I'd never heard her use before. Light, flirty, almost girlish. I felt my jaw clench. Later, when we were finally leaving, I brought it up. I tried to stay calm. "You were really flirty with that guy." She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Flirty? With Tyler? You touched his arm like 5 times. You ignored me half the night. Are you serious?" she said, laughing a little. "You're being ridiculous. I'm just telling you how it looked. It looked like 2 friends catching up. God, are you really this insecure? I can't believe you're being this guy right now." That's what she always did. She flipped it, made me the problem. I wasn't reacting to anything real. I was being paranoid, needy, clingy. That's how she dodged accountability. Every single time. And the worst part? I believed her. I sat in that passenger seat all the way home, staring out the window, silently apologizing to myself for overreacting to something that absolutely deserved a reaction. After that party with Tyler, something inside me shifted. I started realizing how many moments like that I had swept under the rug. How often I'd convinced myself I was overreacting just to keep things calm. But that night stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. So, a few days later, I decided to have an honest conversation. I rehearsed it in my head, practiced staying calm, not accusing, just sharing how I felt. I thought if I did it right, she might actually hear me. We were in her apartment. I waited until after dinner. She was scrolling TikTok on the couch, laughing at something on her For You page. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Can we talk for a sec?" She looked up, already suspicious. "About what?" I've been feeling kind of pushed aside lately, especially at that party the other night." Her face dropped like I'd slapped her. "Oh my God." Still, I ignored that. "It's not just that. I feel like sometimes I'm walking on eggshells around you. Like, if I bring up something that upsets me, you either get defensive or shut me down." She blinked at me. I could see the storm brewing behind her eyes. But then, like flipping a switch, her whole demeanor changed. Her voice got small. Her eyes welled up. "So now I'm a bad girlfriend?" "No, that's not what I'm saying." She stood up, arms folded across her chest, tears already falling. "You think I mean to hurt you? Do you know how hard I try? I've been nothing but loving and supportive, and this is how you see me." Completely derailed me. I didn't know what to say. Suddenly I was the villain in her story. Again, she kept going. I can't believe you're turning this on me. I've been dealing with so much, and now you're saying I'm toxic. I never said that, I muttered. But that's what you meant. And just like that, the entire conversation turned into damage control. My damage control. I was apologizing for hurting her, for expressing how I felt. She sat curled on the couch while I wrapped my arms around her, trying to comfort the person who had just twisted my emotions into knots. That night, as I walked home alone, I remember thinking, this isn't what love is supposed to feel like. But even then, I still didn't think about leaving. I thought about trying harder, because that's what being with her did to me. It made me believe that if I just fixed myself enough, maybe she'd stop breaking me. One of the first things Olivia ever told me was how much she valued emotional openness. She said vulnerability was sexy, that she hated emotionally unavailable men and loved people who could really communicate. I believed her. I mean, who wouldn't want a partner who says that? So over time, I opened up. Slowly, honestly. I told her about how I used to feel invisible in high school, how I got bullied for being too sensitive. I told her about my parents' messy divorce, how I always felt caught between them, and how I hated conflict because of it. I even told her about the panic attacks I had my freshman year of college, and how ashamed I was of them. She always listened quietly, eyes wide, nodding. Sometimes she'd touch my arm and say, "That's so brave of you to share." I felt like I was finally with someone who got it, who saw the scared parts of me and didn't flinch. Until one night, she turned all of that against me like a loaded weapon. We were in the middle of a fight. I don't even remember how it started. Probably something small. They always did. But it escalated fast like it always did with her. And in the heat of the argument, she said something that stopped me cold. "You act like such a victim all the time. Maybe if you stopped blaming everything on your parents, you'd actually be a decent boyfriend." Silence. My chest went hollow. I blinked, stunned. "What?" She didn't back off. "You're just so emotionally fragile. And I'm tired of tiptoeing around your trauma like it's an excuse for everything." I just stood there, jaw tight, heart pounding. That wasn't a slip. That wasn't anger talking. That was precision. She'd waited until I was vulnerable, then struck where it would hurt most. I managed to say, "I trusted you with that." And she rolled her eyes. "Yeah, and I listened to you cry about it how many times? At what point do you take responsibility for your own baggage?" That night, something snapped. Not in her. In me. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't storm out. I just sat down and stared at the floor, realizing for the first time that I was not in a normal relationship. This wasn't love. This wasn't tough communication. This was a person who collected my insecurities like ammunition and waited for the moment I couldn't defend myself. I stopped talking for the rest of the night. She pouted and accused me of giving her the silent treatment. She said I was being manipulative by shutting down. She cried. Again. But this time something was different. I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't reach to hold her. I was starting to see the truth. I just wasn't sure I was ready to act on it yet. After that brutal fight, things didn't stay tense for long. Almost overnight, Olivia switched gears, and I found myself caught in a confusing whirlwind of affection and charm. It was like the storm passed, but the dark clouds never really left. She started showing up with little gifts. A coffee from my favorite shop, tickets to a concert I'd mentioned months ago, and once, this old leather journal she said was perfect for my writing. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to make amends, to rebuild the parts she'd broken. Her texts changed too. No more sharp edges, no more biting remarks. Instead, they were filled with "I love you," "I'm sorry," and "please don't shut me out." She even planned a weekend getaway for us, a quiet cabin by the lake. She said it was a fresh start, a chance to leave all the drama behind. For a few days, it felt like the girl I'd first fallen for was back. Laughing, sharing stories, holding me close like she meant it. But the sweetness came with strings attached. If I hesitated about plans, she'd guilt-trip me. "After everything I've done, you don't trust me?" If I didn't respond to her messages fast enough, the text would shift from "miss you" to "are you even there?" to "I don't know why I bother." And if I tried to talk about the fights or the pain, she'd quickly change the subject, saying, "Why dredge up old stuff? Can't we just be happy?" That cabin weekend ended with a fight, the kind where she accused me of being ungrateful and said, "Maybe I shouldn't bother trying anymore if you're just going to be like this." I realized then that her affection wasn't about love. It was about control, keeping me close but on edge, wondering if this moment of warmth would be the last before the storm rolled back in. I was trapped in a cycle, highs that made me forget the lows, and lows that made me desperate for the highs. And the worst part? I was addicted to it. By this point, I was exhausted. The endless ups and downs, the mind games wrapped in sweet gestures, had drained me. But I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. So I decided to try something radical. I set a boundary. It wasn't anything crazy, just something simple like asking for space when I needed it, or telling her I wasn't okay with her checking my phone. I wanted respect, a little breathing room. But to her, it was betrayal. The moment I said, "I need some time to myself," her entire face changed. The warm, loving woman I'd known vanished, replaced by a storm of rage and hurt. "How dare you?" she shouted. "After everything I've done for you? You think you can just walk away when things get hard?" I tried to explain, to calm her down, but it was no use. She kept yelling, saying I was selfish, ungrateful, and emotionally cold. She brought up every mistake I'd ever made, twisting them into evidence that I didn't care. She cried too, loud, heartbreaking sobs that made me want to comfort her, but something inside told me to hold back. The next few days were a nightmare. She ignored my calls, then bombarded me with texts accusing me of abandoning her. Friends started noticing the tension, but I couldn't bring myself to explain what was really going on. And yet, through it all, she still promised she loved me, that this was just a rough patch, that if I stayed, things would get better. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But every time I tried to hold on, she tightened the chains a little more. By the time part 10 rolls around, things had reached a breaking point. I wasn't just tired, I was broken down. Every day felt like walking on glass, trying not to set off another explosion. One evening, after a fight over something stupid, I honestly can't even remember what, Olivia went completely off on me, yelling, slamming doors, calling me every name she could think of. She accused me of being weak, worthless, and selfish. I tried to stay calm, but my own words came out shaky, desperate. "Why are you doing this to me? Why can't you just stop?" Her answer? "Because you deserve it. Maybe if you were better, I wouldn't have to." That hit me harder than anything before. She wasn't just angry. She was trying to break me. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking, staring at the ceiling. Felt like my whole world was crashing down. I realized something. This wasn't love. It was abuse. And if I stayed, I was going to lose myself completely. That's when I made the decision. I was going to leave her. No more promises, no more fights, no more pretending. I didn't know how yet. I just knew I had to. After that night, I started quietly planning my exit. It wasn't easy. Living with Olivia meant every move was watched, every word analyzed. I had to be careful, like sneaking around in my own life. I saved money secretly, packed a bag when she wasn't home, and told a few close friends what was going on, so they could help if I needed it. I felt like a prisoner preparing to escape. But Olivia wasn't oblivious. She started changing tactics. Instead of anger, she used guilt. Sweet, suffocating guilt. One evening, she sat me down, eyes glossy, and said, "I know I've been hard on you, but I'm scared. You're all I have, and the thought of losing you, it kills me." She begged me to stay, promising to change. "I'll go to therapy, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't leave me." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe there was still a chance. But every promise felt like a trap, like the calm before the storm. Then came the silent treatments. Days of no texts, no calls, and then sudden, frantic messages like, "Please, just talk to me," or "You're breaking my heart." She made leaving feel like the cruelest thing I could do, twisting my empathy into chains. Despite it all, I held firm. I knew I deserved better. I had to get out. When I finally told Olivia I was leaving, the reaction was worse than I expected, and somehow not worse at all. She screamed, cried, begged, and insulted me all in one breath. It was a chaotic explosion of every emotion I'd been bottling up for months. She called me selfish, cruel, and unloving. She said I'd never find anyone who'd put up with me like she did. Then, she threatened to tell everyone lies about me, how I was the bad boyfriend, how I was controlling, how I'd hurt her first. The night I packed my things, she followed me around the apartment, sobbing and yelling, "Please don't do this. We can fix it. I can change. You're my everything." I stayed calm. I said what I needed to say. This isn't healthy for either of us. I walked out, carrying only what I could fit in a backpack, and felt a crushing weight lift off my shoulders. The weeks after were rough. I was haunted by doubt and guilt. I replayed every moment, every argument, asking myself what I missed, what I could have done differently. But slowly I began to rebuild. Therapy helped me understand what happened. Friends reminded me I wasn't alone. I started journaling again, writing about my pain and my hope. The toxicity didn't disappear overnight, but each day I felt a little stronger, a little freer. For the first time in a long time, I started to believe I could be happy again. After leaving Olivia, the hardest part wasn't just being alone. It was learning how to be okay with being alone. I'd spent so much time bending myself to fit her world that I didn't know who I was without her. Therapy helped a lot. I started to recognize the patterns I'd fallen into, the constant self-doubt, the fear of upsetting someone else, the way I silenced my own feelings to keep the peace. It was exhausting just thinking about it. But I also started to rediscover the things I loved. Writing again was huge. I poured everything onto the page. Anger, sadness, relief. It was like unloading a heavy backpack I'd been carrying for years. I made a rule for myself. No more settling for less than respect. No more letting anyone dim my light. I started reconnecting with old friends, the ones I'd drifted from when I was wrapped up in the relationship. It was awkward at first, like meeting strangers who somehow remembered my past better than I did. But it felt good. Real. Dating? Not even close. I needed time. Time to heal, to be whole again. Most importantly, I started learning to trust myself. To listen to my gut instead of drowning it out with excuses and apologies. It wasn't easy. Some days, the memories of Olivia's voice, her sharp words, the way she made me feel small, still crept in. But each day, that voice got quieter, and my own voice grew louder. By this point, I was learning what real love and respect looked like. Not the chaotic, draining kind I'd been stuck in with Olivia, but the kind that feels steady and kind, even on bad days. I realized that before I could trust anyone else, I had to trust myself. That meant setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, and valuing my own feelings just as much as others. Slowly, I started opening up to people again. Friends, family, even new people who wanted to get to know me. It was scary at first because I was scared of getting hurt again. But this time, I was careful. I learned to spot red flags early, the subtle digs, the passive aggression, the gaslighting tricks. I didn't ignore those feelings like I used to, and when someone respected my limits and listened, I felt safe. I felt like I could be myself without shrinking or changing. Dating again was a slow, careful process. I wasn't looking for perfection, just someone who wanted to grow with me, who saw me, really saw me. Most importantly, I was learning to love me. Not the broken, scared guy Olivia had tried to erase, but the guy who was healing, growing, and ready to live on his own terms. Looking back on everything with Olivia, the fights, the tears, the manipulation, I see how easy it was to get caught in that cycle. How love can sometimes feel like a battlefield, where the person who's supposed to protect you ends up hurting you the most. The hardest lesson? Realizing that love isn't supposed to break you down. It's supposed to build you up, make you stronger, not smaller. I learned that it's okay to walk away. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, "This isn't healthy for me." Most of all, I learned to trust myself. To listen to that little voice inside that tells you when something's wrong, and to act on it. I'm still healing. I probably will be for a while. But I'm not alone anymore. I have friends who support me, a therapist who guides me, and most importantly, a new respect for myself. If you're stuck in something toxic, know this: you don't have to stay. You deserve better. And even if it feels impossible, you can find your way out. Because in the end, the greatest love story you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself.